Thank you for joining us today on The One Focus, where we help busy practitioners lean into the one thing and help us learn from one another. Today, I'm joined with Dr. Will Toe with Optical Illusions in the Bay Area. We were talking about incremental growth versus exponential growth, and his story came up, which he's going to share right now.
One of the things that I really dislike about healthcare is how we're so everyone's always about the status quo. We don't like change so much that growth happens at a very incremental level. Here's a good example. Let's talk about some retinal cameras. Okay, not talking about anyone in particular, but just retinal cameras. Somebody will come by and say, "Hey, buy this retinal camera. This is the resolution. This is what it can do. This is how you help treat patients, and it costs this much money. It's this big. And you just put in your pre-test room." And we go, "Oh, that sounds great. Here's my money. Take it." And then 2 years later or so, they'll be like, "Hey, guess what? We just came up with the next generation of it, and the resolution on the camera is 10% better. We made it a little bit smaller, so it's a little bit more compact if you have a small, if you don't have that much space. So it's about 10-20% smaller. Oh, by the way, it also costs like 50% more, or 20 to 50% more, because it's a better machine." And we go, "Oh, that sounds great. Take my money." Right? We do this all the time, and so it's almost our fault as well too, but because we chosen to make that acceptable. Now let's talk about how things work in tech. So a company like Apple or Intel will say, "Oh, here's a microchip right here. This is the processing power. It's this big, and here's the cost to it." And then 2 years later, they'll say, "Hey, guess what? We just came out with the new generation. This thing is 100 times more powerful. It's half the size. Oh, and we cut the cost by 50%. And then that's their normal in the tech industry. And they go, that's how they're able to do things at an exponential level, because they have pushed the industry to a point where things don't happen at an incremental 5%, 10%, even 20% better. They go, it has to be 50 to 100% better every year, every generation. Otherwise, why are we doing this? What's the point in doing this? So when you think about some of the different things that we do in optometry, as I said, when we settle for just doing a little bit better, and we celebrate, and we purchase things based off of that. When we talk from the contact lens point of view, instead of trying to find ways to reach new patients or to pull in patients who have stopped purchasing with us and all these type of things that we should be doing, what do we do instead? Well, I guess I can make more money and be more profitable if I sign up for this company's growth rebate program or whatnot, so I can get a few extra $100 or a couple $1,000 more per quarter or per year. And it helps with my bottom line, but as I said, it helps this much. It's such a small level. And I'm not saying it's bad, and it's still money in your pocket, but I really hate the whole game of the growth rebate. I think it's an outdated system. I think it traps and keeps us in a system which is outdated, and some of the manufacturers cling to it because it helps keep you in their ecosystem, and it stops you from, as I said, growing exponentially, because you're doing incremental. You're happy with the incremental growth that you get from the rebates there. I think the whole annual supply game is an outdated system as well too. I think people and consumers are starting to lose that, and I would be shocked actually if we're still doing as many annual supply rebates 5 years from now. I think it's already dying, and I think the manufacturers understand that, but they're still holding on to it because it still allows them to make as much profit up front, and therefore the practice can as well too. But you're also putting yourself in a situation where you're becoming very static because you're doing one and done type of thing instead of being more dynamic and being able to reach the patient at multiple touch points if needed, doing a more subscription-based model, or being able to help them as I mentioned before, as the market gets tougher, inflation, things like that, having somebody help them improve their affordability for some of the higher premium products is more helpful when you have a more recurrent subscription model versus pay for $1,000 up front just so that you can get $200 rebate back. So something that I feel hopefully is on its way out as a industry type of service, but we'll see how things go.
Well, thank you for joining me today on The One Focus, Will. And one thing we can all take away from this is looking at little things that are doing incremental growth for you and other things within your practice that can grow you exponentially. So now activate your one focus.